All right. All right. This is Arpad from the YouTube channel Star Path Academy. This is the second try. Let's see if the audio is somewhat better now. If you guys can use the chat to comment, that would be perfect to see if how is the audio doing now. So, yeah, just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about the comments you asked me and the questions you asked me. And there's one news item that kind of interested me, and we'll see what you guys think about that. Okay, perfect. So the audio is better now. Thank you, Spock 2024. All right. Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So before I guess we go on to the news item, which is not like earth shattering, mind blowing anyway, but and it might not even go through. I wanted to do a little bit of commentary on a question that I received. Now I can't find it. I've been trying to find it um, on YouTube, but I remember reading it. I just can't find it now. I don't know what happened to it. It wasn't like even controversial. But a commenter asked me about like if, and I don't give investment advice. I don't give like advice at all. I'm just telling my opinion. But she was asking about like copper. I think she was asking about investing in copper or how we dealt with copper back in Romania, and I guess non-precious metals during the hyperinflationary period and some of those times. And I did say this before. She was probably a new subscriber that we heavily, I wouldn't say invest, but heavily bought any metal that we could that would last, right? And in our case, it was mostly aluminum, and yeah, definitely aluminum, but also copper. Copper was kind of hard to get by, but even like steel. But the issue is what you have to understand was that my father was a machinist. We had like in our town we had industry, right? In communism. Now think of it what you want, but it was definitely large factories, and we had industry, machining shops, loads of them, right? All big companies that had a lot of equipment that got sold off on the pennies on the dollar. So people kind of bought that up if they were lucky and if they were corrupt to get like the first dibs on it, right? And then from that, they opened up machine shops because the need to produce was still there, and people were skilled, highly skilled, and capitalism was coming and free economy was coming, so everybody was trying to do something, right? Because maybe you had like you've been living on the government pay for a long time, but as soon as that stopped, you have to do something, right? So a lot of people went into this freedom mode, and it was hyperinflation after the fall of communism. So we knew exactly how we would be what would be our exit plan for these metals, right? My father was a machinist. He had a little shop. My uncle had a bigger shop. My father worked there as well. So it was very easy for us to know like who would be utilizing these metal, if we would smelt it, if we would do something with it. We even did some casts from aluminum. We also had like everything was breaking down. People could not afford to purchase anything from outside of Romania, right? So import died immediately, almost immediately. And there was a lot of stuff that you needed to fix, right? So there's always this outlet of how you can get rid of it, right? If you cannot use it within your projects, that you can sell it. And that was definitely the case. So I cannot give advice on what she should do, what she should not do. But what I'm saying is that you would always have to think about what is your entry plan and exit plan. What I can tell you in a hyperinflationary situation, it's going to be holding its value. That's for sure. So we kind of used it as a savings account, right? Especially the aluminum. But we used also other stuff that we knew how to get rid of to some degree, how to sell, which was sugar. So whatever your shtick is, whatever you're doing, think about like how would you get rid of it, how you would sell that, and who you would sell it to. So I think that's quite important because right now, right, um, you have a lot of people who don't work jobs that you can sell them anything, to be honest, or they don't produce really anything in the sense a lot of services, digital goods, all of that stuff, right? It's kind of hard because back then, like I would know exactly what I would do with, you know, 10 kilos or 20 kilos of copper. Right now, it would be hard. It would be hard. Like, who's gonna buy that? So, yeah. So think about that. It's still good, but you have to have an exit plan. But that's true also for gold, silver, and any other investment vehicle. And that's probably true for Bitcoin and um, cryptos as well. You have to have someone that you're going to trade with, and ideally it needs to have a utility as well, because if not, you're just selling it to the greater fool, and you're betting on hoping that you will find a greater fool to kind of load it on them, which is, to be honest, the same case for stocks, right? Now I understand, like, back in the day stocks meant something very different, where it had like dividends, right? Well, I guess you can still find dividend yielding stocks. But it usually meant like you're actually having something from the company. Right now, in most of the cases, whatever the fangs are, right? Facebook, Amazon, so on, basically just like a crypto. It's really not much better, because no matter like how much of the share you have to buy to have a say in what the company does, you have no say at all. You're just basically financing them to do whatever they want, right? But you have no say in it. So it's actually, in some cases in crypto, maybe you have like a voting right or something where the project goes. I don't know if that's worth a lot, but um, yeah, a lot of things, if you really boil it down, it's basically just a big scam. And if it has no utility, right, it's most of the time it's a promise on utility. It's a promise that you will be get rich on it, and it's a promise that somebody will pay you more on it in the future. And that was not the case when we, quote unquote, invested in aluminum. It had a function for us. My father made a bunch of stuff. We fixed a bunch of stuff. We sold a bunch of stuff, um, gadgets, and right from locks to door hinges to anything that we could pour from aluminum, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, you have to think about these basic terms, because once the illusion kind of ties off, right, you come back to reality, and reality is much simpler than you think, right? You think now that you own some stocks, but what you really have is an access to a phone that is a platform to a bigger system that promises you something, right? A utility in the future. And we actually did own some stocks back in Romania, but it was more like shares of the company where my mother worked at, which is also a factory, right? Which is supposed to be like compensating for the pension that she will get, right? um, and of course, it failed. Everything stopped, and they bought it out on like it was just like, I think the whole pension plan eventually bought her like a bag, like a nicer handbag, and that was it. Um, so yeah, sure. In good times, do whatever you want, but don't expect them to perform in a way where you like what will you have been told basically all your life if you lived in society that never experienced anything else than prosperity, reasonable prosperity. Yeah, so think about that. All right, let's see what the chat is doing. Okay, so what is your thoughts on Germany and the war against Russia? I'm not gonna comment too much on it, because YouTube reasons, but war has many aspects, and one aspect is to let your enemies destroy each other and make sure that your enemies never become friends. So maybe, like an industrious power never connects with an energy power because they might be a bigger competition that you could swallow. So it's a nice trick to kind of let them fight off. And anyway, so yeah, wars and other conflicts are many different reasons that you don't think about when you're looking at from like and I mean this not in a bad way, but in from a brainwashed perspective when you have been immersed into the culture that is teaching you the viewpoint you should have towards the world. Now, I have a very positive bias for the United States because I always loved the United States, what it represents. And by that, I mean the people, not necessarily the government that changes every now and then, or, you know, um, so on and so forth, what it represents in every 2 years or every couple of months. So just the basic concept. So like I have that bias, but I have to know about that bias that I have. So when I see the world through a lens, I have to make sure that I put that there and I am knowledgeable about that. But one thing that I shared previously, and I will say again and again, um, Europe had many wars throughout the ages, and some were kind of weird in the sense where um, two, let's say, cousins, right? One could be like a Habsburg, one could be like a Belgian, whatever, or a French king, and they would have a little scuffle, a little war between them over territory. And then, even before that, they had quote unquote champions when they got tired of war and they would decide things like that. And many times it was just so they get rid of young men who could actually bring on change, and they could direct them outward to a death field, right? So they would expose them that way. Like the most honest, most patriotic people who would actually want to make a change in their own country for the better, they would always find some crappy stuff, hellhole, to send them there to die, right? And they would prolongate these wars or repeat them, right? And in the back, they would be cousins or brothers and sisters, or who knows, right? So you have to think about that aspect as well, that they will always find some ways to expose of this, very fiery energy of young men that could actually change the world. So have that in mind. Right. But not gonna comment too much on this situation. So Spock says, I'm making sugar this year from sugar beets. Yeah, we never made that. I have never made that, but the sugar factory in my hometown was making sugar from sugar beets, but we just always bought the sugar. But that's amazing because I was thinking just like 2 days ago, or like if what would happen if you would have to really start from nothing, like civilization. It was kind of like a little thought experiment. What are the like, and you have nothing, right? You're back in 200 years ago and you have nothing, only what you know, right? And even like this YouTube guy does something like this where Like he goes into the forest and just only is using stuff that he can find in the forest and try to rebuild civilization. I think he was a big hit like 2 years ago. So I was thinking like, okay, now you have people, right? But can you actually restart? Like, how many of you know the formula for gunpowder, right? Or how many of you know how to, make gasoline from oil, right? Or what like what do we really know? We're just really part of a system and being compartmentalized, and our knowledge is so specific to the field that we're in that we're really designed to be dependent on the system. So I think that's why the matrix analogy makes so much sense, that whether you want it or not, you're so dependent on the system. Many of us, now granted, some who may be listening, especially if you're making sugar out of sugar beets, good for you. But like, how would you make brass, right? There's so many things that you have to think about. Is always like the knowledge. Do you have the knowledge in your head, or it's really just in an electronic format? Like, maybe if you would have some books, right, about this stuff. Like, I have some older books about these. Now I'm trying to pick up some more books about medicine. And I have some, but to be honest, they're kind of more unique to the European um, fauna and vegetation. So I need to pick up some books for the US as well. If you can recommend, like, I found a few, but we'll see. Like, if I can make recommendations, I will. But it's definitely interesting that, like, realizing like how unskilled we are compared to our grandfathers or grandfathers. Can you make an axe out of nothing? If you find like a piece of, now I happen to know, but like, do you know, like, if you just find, like, can you forge? That's what I'm saying. I took classes. Xrav says X-Raw. Sorry, X-Raw. Today when I went to Sam's Clubs in Florida, I went to the egg section and there was just an empty space where the eggs were. Yeah. Yeah, so when I told some stories about like how we used to trade and bring live chickens, right, to the doctor, um I know most of you believed, but it was a hard concept probably for most of you. Why would that be enough for a day's wage, right? Or why would somebody like my father-in-law expect like a bag of eggs as a pay for his full day's work? Well, now you hopefully, I don't know if this is good or bad, but maybe now you start having understanding that like value is relative of shortages and something in excess, right? So workforce, when nobody had work, was in such an excess, and chickens was such in a shortage for food that it just balanced itself out. So like, yeah, I don't want to say bad stories, but anyway. I hope we don't get there again, but it's like history repeating itself over and over again. For some reason, we think we're so smart now because we have um, an iPhone, right? Exactly. So we don't have to worry about eggs too much. Spock as well. He says 6 hens, around 40 eggs a week. Yeah, definitely. Try to get at least 20. Try to get at least 20. To be honest, like, there's not much a difference when it comes to, well, it depends where you live and what you do, I guess. But if you have at least one family member, um, you know, not working or being a stay-at-home mom or stay-at-home dad, It's quite easy. The jump between six hands and 20 is not that much, right? The jump between one to six is probably more percentage wise. Now, of course, again, you have to like, what do you do with all the eggs, right? I'll have to mute sometimes because I. All right. Sorry about that. I hope you'll stay. Okay, so do you think the Fed will pivot and inflation will take off again? I think inflation will take off again. I just don't know when. My guess is probably within the next 16 months, we're going to be not talking about deflation. Sometime between the next 8 to 16 months. This is just my cycle theory. This is not advice or anything like that. I think they will like stagnate on a little bit, but my guess is there will be some event that will kick it off, right? And oh, we have nothing else, so we have to inflate. And like the issue is that you can get away with a lot of inflation for a long time if you lock people up in their apartments like they did in China, and you have limited way of spending money, and they limit your credit cards and they limit whatever, because basically you're forcing them to take on the inflation. You let the population eat up the inflation. So if you have complete control over the population, you can negate the effect of inflation with stopping the economy, right? So, like, you're pressing them down into depression on one end, so you can get away with spending on the other end. Now, the issue is that the quote unquote economy stops, but government can always just find more work for you. You can always just pave the forests, right? They can pay you to pave the forests. So like they did, like they did, I think they in Japan during the last decade, they did a bunch of crap. And what they do in China, right? The ghost cities. So they can find something to get you occupied so you don't think about too much and you're managed. And then you're begging, oh, may I take the mask off, master, right? Instead of like how I will be able to feed the family. So if you have a lot of control, you can manipulate these things. Now, in our case, in Romania, they no longer had control. So it was a free market inflation, right? Of, oh, wait, this isn't worth crap anymore. So let's just dump it. In this case, I think it will be different because we no longer have a free market. So I think before that, they will have to go somewhere with the digital dollar. They will have to do something, right? And I think this is a good time to read the little news article, which may not be that big of a thing. Um, but yeah, let's do that. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, just the headline. So, Arizona lawmakers push bill to make Bitcoin legal tender, right? Yeah, let's just read. State Senator Wendy Rogers from Arizona has introduced a set of bills aimed at making Bitcoin legal tender in Arizona and allowing the state agencies to accept Bitcoin. As Bitcoin Magazine blah blah reports, the proposed legislation aims to recognize Bitcoin as a legal tender form of currency in Arizona, allowing it to be used to pay for debts, taxes, and other financial obligations. This would mean that all transactions that are currently done in the US dollars could potentially be done with Bitcoin, and individuals and businesses would have the option to use Bitcoin as they see fit, right? Specifically mentioning Bitcoin alone, the legal tender bill defines Bitcoin as the decentralized peer to peer digital currency in which a record of transaction is maintained on the Bitcoin blockchain. And I'm not going to read the full thing. But this is quite interesting. Now, if you don't know, you should know gold and silver is legal tender in a couple of states, and you should look at those states. And if you can live there, I guess. but it does not make that big of a difference right now. But it's good to have those things. Gold or silver being legal tender, I don't know if it's good. Like I'm always thinking like there might be something having some shady ideas behind it, but technically it would be a good thing, because that way, oh, I can always just pay my taxes, right? The only thing that you have to really pay, all right? I know. Not everything else you can just produce for yourself or trade with others, right? But taxes, you cannot trade with others. You have to trade with the government. So, like, the only legal obligation to make economic transaction is taxes. And if you can do that through gold, technically you could live without anything, in the sense, without a banking, um, without a bank, without a bank account, credit card, or anything, if you could, protect that bubble. So in that sense, it's pretty good. Um, I don't know if that worked. All right. So in some way, this is good and bad, in the sense that, like, well, what is your opinion? Yeah, let me know in the chat, and I'll tell you mine. In some way, it's good because, like, yeah, let's use whatever we can. We could use onions. Wouldn't it be nice if I could pay my taxes in onions? If I could trade in onions or potatoes, I would love that, right? So that would be pretty cool. Just like the serfs in in medieval in Hungary, right? After the golden bulla was approved by the king, they could pay the priests, right? The 1/10 of their whatever they made, they could pay it in salt. They had to pay it in salt, which was kind of used as money. But after that, the golden bulla, I think they could pay in goods, right? So that was much easier because there was no, like, money changers grabbing stuff between the serfs needing to sell some stuff in order to pay taxes for the church, I guess. So in one way, this is freedom, which is great. But the other way, like, we know that Bitcoin is the perfect tracking system, right? Specifically Bitcoin, because everything is viewable on the blockchain. So, like, okay, it's fine if you see that I paid my taxes, I guess that's good, but I don't know if that's like a best form of doing business. Um, Especially, yeah, let's not get into the um IRS agents and so on and so forth. So, like, wouldn't it be nice if you could pay in multiple types of cryptos? Even if you don't like cryptos, just the level of freedom increases. I don't know. It should be good. Um, yeah. So I'll comment more on it. Let me see more comments, or let me see what you guys wrote in the chat. This could be an opportunity. Green liquid motor or fuel, NH3, can be manufactured almost anywhere using sun, water, air. Um, Trying to demonstration project in the Caribbean. Would like help. Yeah, let me know what to Google. um, Green liquid motor oil fuel. Hmm. All right. ANCAPs and libertarians will rise up. Yeah, if they don't destroy each other. Lots of books. Yeah, I think that's what we need to increase. And I mean, we have tons of books, but I think it's more for like homeschooling stuff and historical books. But I have very few technical books when it comes to like building stuff. My father had some. I probably need to be. It would be wise to look them up if they're still there. Um, yeah, it's funny that I get it. We don't have the time to do all of it. Like, I love, forging and that sort of stuff, but who has the time to do that for like a passion, right? I think the time of hobbies, if you cannot make a buck out of it, now if you're really good at it, I guess you could make knives and such, or Damascus, which I tried and had success with it, some success with it. Um, but like you really have to make money out of your hobby and make it into a profit and make it into a side gig. If not, you're not going to be able to support it in these times with the high inflation. The the it will just not cut it. So there's you got to prepare. You cannot have fun. At least, I mean, maybe you can. I don't know. Um, but definitely, I think going low tech is the answer. Most of the times, the answer is really simple. And having books about creating low tech stuff is very important. Benoit, I hope Benoit, I'm pronouncing your name right. You comment so many times, and I'm glad that you do. I'm not sure if I pronounced your name right. I hope, like, give me a 1 to 5 how I pronounce it, and I'll try to better it. Was it the Doctor Stone Japanese anime you're talking? No, I don't think I ever watched. Maybe I did watch some anime at some point. I don't know. A scientist gets frozen in stone by aliens and wakes up in the world that is back to the Stone Age. I think it was. That's pretty. I mean, the stories are pretty good. No, no, it's not. I just watched some weird YouTube stuff, which made me question a lot of things. And I think there it was like, oh, do you know how to make gunpowder? Now I happen to know, but do you? You know. By the way, like one hobby that you may want to pick up is casting bullets. Like if you have a good, yeah, it's not YouTube stuff, I guess, but yeah, definitely that's a good hobby. Make sure whatever you shoot can take a hotter round. Yeah, Spock, I know this is like a philosophical thing, like why real estate taxes they were paid when the house was built. I know you have to do what you like because it's enforced by people with guns. That's the answer. Timber framing. Yeah, I looked into timber framing as well. It's just it seems like a lot of it's time consuming. But I love the timber framed houses. Act Viobrazni. Brazni says AKT. I have a loan on a house with a fixed rate for the next 4 years. After that, it will be changing rate according to the economy. I am looking forward to dev- devaluate the loan, hoping time will be good. Yeah, I cannot give you advice because I don't know your specific situation. Um, I did have I did have some real estate people on the channel, and um, especially because I wanted to help. Like I'm not. I mean, I'm doing real estate, but what I want people to understand that when the real estate loans were like at a really low percent, you were doing arbitrage between percentages, between inflation percentage and the percentage that you're getting your loan at, right? So if you could make that arbitrage work. If you're getting a loan at 3% and inflation is 9%, they just haven't put it on paper yet. So oh no, it's still just 4%, right? And where you could clearly see that's not what was happening. You could take that opportunity to buy houses because that way you're not really buying houses, you're shorting the dollar, right? So that's why I wanted to make people understand like how you could short dollar by taking up a huge loan on a fixed rate and then repaying them back later, still on the fixed rate. But I know in Europe that's not the case. Um, so even in Romania, you get like um 2 3 years, and after that, like, you get effed. So I don't know what to say about that, but take advantage it while you can. Um, I think, yeah. So I think this is just a cycle in the sense inflation will pick up again. I think they're gonna go back. The rates are gonna go back because business is stopping. Like, not just that, even if the rates don't go back, the house prices will go down at least. Not the prediction here, like, oh, in my town it went down only 10%, but you, Arpad, said it's going to go down 25%, which my guess is minimum 25%. Um, I don't know. You really have to take a look at whatever deal you make, it makes sense on the day you buy it. So Spock says, I love low tech. Yeah, I think low tech is the way to go. Really, because anything not low tech is really just slavery. If you cannot fix or rebuild your engine, right? Um, you are now expanding beyond something that you can never come back to, right? And that's my problem with electric stuff. If you're dependent on electric vehicles, I think that's like, because it's nice, but it's so complex that we cannot just fix it. I cannot just, you know, bring into Bubba and, pay him and, hey, fix my EV. And he says, no, them darn batteries are dead, and I cannot do anything, right? So now, like, it's just out of our power. So yes, I may want one in the future, right? Especially if it reads your chip implanted. I'm joking. Like, it might be good to have it for freedom. I like electrical bikes and that sort of stuff, right? And I always have like extra batteries and that sort of stuff. And I know I can change it. Um, but I don't want to be dependent on it. I would rather be dependent on horses because, if you can breed them, there's no, like, nobody needs to mine cobalt for you, to breed the horse. So it's like, never, never go out too far into the deep of servitude where you cannot come back from. I think that's quite important because that is where the trap lies. So low tech, you have to have low tech stuff, if nothing else, just as a backup. Yeah, if you could make diesel, right, from like burnt oil. I know you can. I need to look that up. That would be awesome. But we don't fry that much stuff. Like, we don't fry almost anything. But I guess if you have a lot of oil and you fry a bunch of stuff, then you could reuse that oil as well. Suzanne says, my family builds working sailboats from local tropical hardwoods. We live in the communist states of Hawaii. We also forge and are starting a project to smelt iron from lava sand. That's amazing. Wow, I never heard about the lava sand. Iron from lava sand. Low tech is great. Yeah, definitely. I don't know about the state of Hawaii though. Yeah. I mean, if you're self-sufficient, but even then, like, when I was in Hawaii, right, I liked it. But I was so surprised about the homelessness there. I would have not expected homeless people there. Like I thought it would be the natives, being all self-sufficient, and then the people who go and spend their money, but just like homeless people there, how did they get there? It was kind of weird. And I know I'm limited in imagination, I guess, when it comes to Hawaii, but if you could enlighten me, um, I guess the banks kind of screwed them over. Yeah, probably. And drugs. I don't know. Poor people. Canadian man has converted an F-350 truck to run. Okay, so I think I need to make some notes here because I'm gonna look into that. So, Canadian man has converted an F-350 truck to run on NH3. I don't know. We'll see. Thank you, by the way. Like, I really appreciate this stuff. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I wanted to be like in an honest moment. When I first did YouTube, I never did it for YouTube. I just wanted to tell a story. And then I saw like some people, like many of you are recurring visitors and subscribers, and some donate and buy me a coffee. And then I said, like, okay, let's do this more, right? But after that, like so many good advices came in, like, oh, you need to look into the camera more, you need to do the lighting this way, and you need to do this, and you need to charge this, and you need to do advertising and those stuff. And I'm like, everything felt like a good advice, which were probably good advice. But after that, like doing YouTube becomes a job, and I don't want YouTube to be a job. Like I want to be able to like screw up and feel okay about it if I mess up things, just by saying things in the sense of English is my fourth language. I cannot like speak it fluently enough. So, um this should be my leisure fun time with you guys maybe twice a month, right? And yeah, if it makes the advertising bucks, I guess fine. But I think that kind of like I went through that loop of being stuck because I was trying to do too perfect. And to be honest, like I think it's not worth it at that point. No matter what money you make, it's just another prison in the sense of you're just now you have expectations and now you have charts to watch, and it's limited anyway. Like I saw like from the logger, like usually if you're not familiar with this, view counts usually go by a logarithmic chart. So it like jumps up really nice first few hours and then tapers off like that. And I found like I tried to make some crazy shorts or whatever short videos that I knew it would like hit the right hashtags, hit the right title, the right music, whatever. So I knew I could make it go viral, but not like it doesn't generate you a lot of stuff. But like I knew like I'm attached to the human subconscious enough. If I do a couple of crazy stuff, it might go viral. So I tried it out. Then just to see like, oh, can I go above X amount of views on it? And I found out it's a hard, hard cap at 12,000. Like it went like this and it capped it. Okay, so I tried it again. It went again like this, 12,000, capped it. Subscriptions, same thing, 12,000. I don't know why, how. Is this natural? It's statistically probably not, whatever it is. But then I thought like, oh, okay, well, what's the deal with it? And I realized I don't care. I don't care too much because it's a blessing to have fewer viewers, fewer viewers who care more or who I can have a conversation with than instead of going for the numbers. And to be honest, it's actually much stable system. I would rather have 5 million people each with 100 subscribers having similar views to me, kind of trying to push us into the right direction as a country, as the world, instead of one big influencer with 500 million, because that's a point of attack. Like, that can be taken over, subverted, whatever, right? So, or Andrew Tate jailed in Romania, right? Now, regardless of what you think about him. So whatever, like, it's much more stable if we would all have 12,000 subscribers, and we would all have a similar quote unquote religion or worldview, and we would talk about that, right? It would be much more stable. So do more YouTube channel, guys, and then we can talk about like how we synchronize what we're going to talk about, like the news media. And of course, this is like half jokingly, but like, I'm not sure if that burden of a lot of subscribers is really worth it, because like, what are you really gaining, right? I don't know. It's probably just safer as well, safer to have less amount of subscribers, especially if they care. Like, if you would have 1,000 people who would, and I'm not saying like do this, just live your life. But like, if you have 1,000 subscribers on buymeacoffee.com, each with $5, I think that's way better than having, you know, half a million subscribers, but then you're dependent now on YouTube terms and policies, and oh, you can't, like, even now you cannot mention things, right? But that way it would be crazy. It would be just like a mind prison, I guess. So as long as like there are a couple of you, I'll still do videos. Don't worry about it. It's just I've been really busy with family stuff, and but like once in a month, I'll always try to do at least something, right? Especially if I have questions. I would ideally want more questions to give me topics or do more videos or shorter ones. But now I happen to find some time, and I wanted to hang out with you guys, even if I'm sick a little bit. Excuse me, I'm not sick, I'm just coughing. You have to watch out for your words. You cannot say things that you don't want. James Hafford says, Start Path Academy. Hey, would you consider doing a dialogue with Emil Kozman? He's also from Kozman. He's also from Romania and has a YouTube channel. Your interaction would amplify issues and remind you guys of things. I'll look him up definitely. I cannot say yes or no until I'll look him up. I'll just put him down, put the name down. I don't know about him. Yeah. What I want to say is that I don't want to do a lot of like like conversations. I kind of almost like stopped with that with the channel, because there was also a lot of preparations in the sense of mind stuff and expectation and that sort of stuff. I probably wouldn't mind having some conversations about some very narrow topics, I guess. Thank you for um, letting me know about him. I'll check him out. Lava sand. Okay, now I learned something. It's 9 to 11% ferrous. Good. Do you think because they printed 1.7 trillion more dollars to everything's going to go up super expensive again? I'm sure that's going to ride everything double. Um, what about stocks and gold and everything? Yeah, the thing is that I think that 1.7 trillion dollars is base money, right? I believe M1 or M2. Do they still do the charts about M1 and M2? I think they stopped at some point. The thing is that will be amplified tenfold and tenfold again, right? Because if you put that money into the bank, eventually, well, they can lend out 90% of it, then puts it into another bank, then the 90%, 90%, 90%. If loans pick up, which they're not right now, the next wave of inflation will, like, the current one will be just like a tiny dwarf next to it. That's my guess. If we don't get a deflationary crash that we are not going to get out of, in the sense that there are going to be so many defaults and so many things that crash completely, in the sense of big banks going away, having one national bank only, um, big builders going away, and so much casualties that it will wipe out that 1.7 or $10 trillion, which could happen. I think if we do not have that, then we're going to have the lost decade. So that's how I see it. Like, if I think they're not going to let us have the lost decade, like in Japan, like in many other countries, after things like what's going to happen. So there's two ways how I see it. Either we're into this 1.5 year deflationary period, stock go down another 25%, gold might go down, and so on and so forth. Then eventually, within the next 8 to 16 months, some world event happens, or someone gets put out of his position, um, like a president, right? And that shocks the market, whatever. And in that case, eventually something happens, and the Fed needs to save the economy and save the world and save you guys, because you will eventually realize you have no money in the back, it's just digits on the screen. So that happens, and we say, okay, we have to print. And that way, the next leg up in inflation will be kind of 3 times what we had right now, minimum 3 to 5 times. And that will be the second leg. I think that's what's most likely. If we're not going to have that, then we're going to have a lost decade, in the sense of there's going to be so much destruction in this deflation that it will last more than what I'm thinking it will last, and it will wipe out all of that printed money. In that case, the GDP can only grow by increasing the population and defense spending. So if, like, the joke goes, the GDP stands for um, government, for G, D for defense, and P for population, because really those are the big things that drive it, right? Government handouts, defense spending, and population growth, right? And we're definitely having the population growth if you ask people down at the border. So I wonder if that is to offset something, right? Because I think the cerveza sickness was to actually offset something else, right? We can 2008 was coming again. Everybody could see that. Schiff saw it like 20 years ago, right? So Peter Schiff. So it was there. So there could be, like, if you just stop, hit the pause on everything, and everything pauses, and you kind of paper that pause over, then you might figure out something, so you don't get into a total global collapse of the fiat monetary system. So we need to buy time in order to implement a control system that we kind of name digital money, but you could name it anything. Basically, we track everything, and we allow individuals or not allow individuals to do something. In that case, we have total control. That's what they think. They don't. They have a total reporting system. It's not control. You can just do whatever you like, right? There are consequences. That's the problem. So, but they think it's a total control system. And that way they buy time with this. Now, in order to kind of not go kind of like float on top of this lost decade, you can do what? Defense spending, push all the stuff to Ukraine, whatever. It doesn't matter as long as we keep on spending, right? What next? Population. We need population growth because you people don't want to buy Nike shoes anymore. So we need other people to buy other stuff, right? So we need to grow the population, and government spending about idiotic stuff will increase. And that way we will just float along on the top of it for a while. And usually that goes with loss of freedom and the so how do you pay for it? Basically, the way how you pay to be able to float on top like something in a pool is the deterioration of the living standard. And eggs, basically, right? If you count how many eggs you needed to purchase your current wage, like how many eggs were your wage? If we count everything in eggs, right? How many eggs is your house? How many eggs is your wage? How many gold bars in eggs, and so on and so forth? You could pick anything. You could pick gold bars against real estate, doesn't matter. What I'm saying, what you will find out, stuff that you don't produce or haven't thought about producing yet, it will go up in price, and then consumer goods and Amazon and everything else will crash because it was just cheap Chinese garbage that you didn't need anyway, right? And all the services like Netflix you will cancel because you won't be able to do stuff. And you think, well, I'm not saying like specifically to you, but like people think that's quality of life, right? uh, if you can sit on your butt all day and watch Netflix, now that quality of life will go away. I think it's maybe it's a positive. We need some refreshment, but that quality of life will go away, and we will slide down to kind of like not so developed country. That's how you pay for it, and that way, yeah, we ate the 1.7 trillion dollars by killing the middle class. Basically, it's either you're in the top or you're in the bottom, like most of the world, to be honest. It's just a big equalization. It's just we're not really bringing up the rest of the world, we're pushing the US down. And Western countries. Weak men, bad times. Suzanne says, okay, oh, it's saying it to Spock for the screen name. Yeah, it's a good one. All right. Let's see some more comments. Jim says, hi, Jim. Thank you for the comments in the recent videos. On the recent videos. He watches for the experience, not for the professional videography. V is like that. I think that's V, a Romanian guy. Tim Pool, people want drama, not substance. I hope I'm giving you some substance. Melissa Scott says, I enjoyed seeing you on ITM trading with Lynette Zhang. Yeah, I definitely like having conversation, even just like the small conversation before we go online or before we start the video. I think she has also a lot of experience, and I like listening to her experience and good analysis. Yeah, and I think there was some overall good stuff. So I really like talking with her. Now, just like with everyone, we have like different opinions on some other things. Thanks. How the been stacking up some silver after that? Yeah, I never say that on YouTube. I'm joking, but yeah, just there was another YouTuber. Um, I haven't talked with people for such a long time, but they did a video about where and how you should store stuff, and basically, I agree. Nothing that you do not have, in the sense somebody else stores it for you, it's not really yours. But storing at home is also not a good idea, um, especially if you're expecting a different form of government that you think you're having now. Yeah. Labradorite um, says, you're the second person in 24 hours I've heard say it's better to have more people with fewer connections rather than one big channel. I think it's more stable. I think it's more stable. I think that's like, I know as humans we're connected and we want to like put people in pedestals and we want to find leaders that we can trust and so on and so forth. Evolutionary strategy or survival strategy, and not really evolutionary strategy. But I think that's in the world of subversion, in the world of bribes and so on and so forth. I don't think that's stable. That's why, like, if a country wants to go full on tyrannical, it needs to kill small business, because big business is easy to control. Having millions of small businesses is not so easy, right? If we would only have small businesses with 10, 15, up to maybe 50 people, I'm not saying that would be like we could achieve everything, but I'm saying if that would be the most, like the absolute majority, unquestionable majority of how people are employed, that would be such much more stable country than this global whatever is being pushed on it, right? So because that point we stop with capitalism and now we're going into materialism and globalism, right? Because these people have no accountability anymore. They are beyond states, whatever the socialist trend is trying to say. You're not going to have so much influence on your beloved politician than Nike will have on him, right? And I'm not picking on Nike, pick whatever, Adidas, doesn't matter. Um, so it's just from stability standpoint, because I think that way you can be more you, and you can do the things that you want in life, not that you are being influenced through advertisement and by the culture pushers. Even if you agree with whatever is being pushed, you have to know that's not stable, right? And eventually it will crash, and when it crashes it's not going to be pretty. Seeing as the central banks hold most of the gold, in the event of a fiat currency collapse, wouldn't the central bank survive and still hold the power? There are no central banks, okay? It's a religion. There are people who control the gold and they make you believe that there's a central bank, because that way you think you have some say in it, especially if they name it federal. So there is no, it's a religion. There's a reason why all the central banks in everywhere in the world, without maybe a few exceptions, with a few exceptions, maybe Iran, I don't know, they all look like temples. Okay. So the central banks will not survive if they don't want to survive. The gold will survive. It's just what happens with the gold. And that's another question. What happens with the gold? So I was just recently, I'm almost thought like I will translate this into English from Hungarian. I was looking at the history, a brief period of the history of the Hungarian central bank, how they use this train, underground storage, whatever, to kind of save the gold from the invading communist army, the liberating communist army. And it was quite funny in the sense that, they went into Austria and Switzerland, of course, and they stored it there in the monastery, and then eventually they put it back. The central bank, did it survive? There was still something central, right? But was it the same central bank? Was it different central bank? Was it the different people who controlled it? So what survived was actually just central control. Central control survived with or without the gold. Eventually, they got the gold back, right? So it doesn't matter, basically, what I'm saying, because what matter is what you believe here. What is your religion about? Who should control what? And as long as that doesn't change, you will keep on recreating the same patterns, whatever civilizations you come up with. But what I wanted to say about gold and silver and so on is the following. So there are some people who have valid points against gold, is that because of the central banks controlling so much gold, is um, is basically you're buying in. Even if you buy gold, you're buying into their system. Now I believe it's a bit different. It's the reverse. They know that they cannot control gold. That's why they have to accumulate so much, so to try to have some leverage over it. And it's hard to acquire. So because if you really think about it, gold is just a piece of metal, right? We, the two of us, could do trade in water or whatever. I guess that's maybe not too scarce. But we could, like, if we would be honest men and women, it doesn't matter. We could do trade on when numbers. We just do double accounting. I know what I gave you, you know what you gave me. We don't need anything. Gold, eventually you need it with people who you didn't quite trust, right? So that's why you traded gold, because you go back to your hometown with gold and you can have a shoe for it, shoe made for it. So that is why you need it, because you needed some medium of exchange. But technically, it's just really a metal. It's not that special if you come with a philosophical mind. And that's what they say now. Don't worry, I'll come back to it a little bit. But that's what they say, right? When they attack it, oh, it's just a pet rock and so on and so forth. Well, it is if you don't care about it. If you're an alien and all you care about is zirconite or whatever, or sapphires, and you don't care, you have no use for this metal, then yes. But the issue is we're not aliens. We're not aliens, and gold is now at this point in the subconscious of humanity, right? That it is money, is the best form of money, and it has been money for over 6,000 years. Silver too. I know the silver guys will say, well, actually, but you're right. Yeah. So silver has, in some cases, even better form of money, especially if all the European banks have already hoarded the gold and you create a new country and you want silver instead of gold for your money. So they cannot manipulate it that much. But what I come back to is that it has a utility, and that's what it, like, the utility is that it will outlast any form of government. It will outlast anything that the controllers, the wannabe controllers, can think up of. So that way, like, if you store your quote unquote wealth in gold, you might never enjoy it, but your great 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 grandson might, as long as you pass down the information of where you buried it. So that's the utility of it, right? Because it's such a good unreactive metal. If that society, your great so on grandson will rebuild or be part of, they will still come to the conclusion that gold is the best form of physical money, right? So that's the value, the timelessness. And I made a full video about this. The timelessness of gold makes it the best form of money. So eventually we'll fall back to gold anyway. But it might be the next 250 years, 250 years, whoever owns gold will be persecuted. I don't know. So, but you have to think about longer time scales because they do. You know, the Chinese government has 50-year plans and 200-year plans and so on and so forth. Now, what comes of it? Same the US, same in Russia. It's just you people, right? You people have a memory of less than 20 years if you're smart. And if you want to know what the rest of the people do, then go on YouTube without logging in and see the homepage of YouTube, and that's what they care about, which is mind-boggling. So it doesn't really matter what do you want from gold. What is the utility that you want from gold? You have to have um, an objective, and does gold, silver fit into that objective or not? So they might not survive, they might call it something else. What happens really is, if we don't change the patterns in our heads, then we will always rebuild the same system. I hope that made like some sense. It was fun. Labradorite says, okay, thank you. Austrian economics and libertarianism is the only humane path. So far, yes. Definitely Austrian economics. I know, like, the issue is that it exists in the real world, and people want to change the real world into a digital world, and there it doesn't make any sense anymore because, I mean, it still makes sense, right? You still have to, like, scarcity and so on and so forth, and work put in and work got out. The issue is that if people are delusional, it doesn't work in a delusional world, right? If people cannot make differentiations between X and Y chromosomes, then what are we talking about? So for the type of men that want to create stuff, you need an honest money and an honest economic system. The issue is that, um, I mean, the whole economy can freeze in Austrian economic system. And technically that would be really solved really fast, right? But that would mean, like, if you were smart and poor become suddenly very rich, and the already very rich don't want that. The egg curve. Ovum. Yes, ovum slash AU for gold. Aurum. Ovum per aurum. That's a chart we need to chart. Yeah, the egg gold curve. I bet there's more information there than we would think. Predict the future. When we'll be able to afford houses finally? Strong dog. Ask an Eastern European who works 9 to 5 job, right? It's almost impossible there to own anything if you're not going somewhere west, washing dishes in the UK, bringing back other currency, and then paying your house like that. Or you're in IT, you're basically doing exactly the same. It's just a more specialized work, and you don't actually have to travel. You just push your work through the internet. The problem is that the middle class has already been wiped out there multiple times, and it's hard to reestablish that, especially if your rulers don't want that. So technically, you will not be able to own homes if we're on the path of getting rid of the middle class, right? The renter, I mean, to be honest, like millennials and post millennials, they don't mind renting their clothes, right? So I'm sorry you missed the train. I don't know how to say this, but like you haven't, you can always create more value and become ultra rich and donate to me if you want. You didn't miss anything. I'm saying if you think of an average Veggie's mind, then you're screwed, because the world that we're stepping into, they don't want you to own a home, because at some point after Doja Judge, which Doza, I guess you can Google him. After that point in history, um, in Europe especially, they did not want the serfs to be able to be free moving people. And that's like a long historical curve. So the way you spell Doja Jud is Dozsa. First name and last name is Gyorgy, or Gjörg Doja. So that guy wanted to be free. Now, what was his in his mind? We'll never know. But after that, the whole system was blown up, and they know that in order to keep this long trend of same rulers and bloodlines, you have to reset the system so often. And we happen to be in the cycle of a reset. And that's it. So, but that don't let me say like, oh, you specifically won't be able to. No, if you don't change your mindset, then you won't be able to, because we're in that cycle of wiping everything away and becoming serfs again, and so on and so forth. But you specifically can get out of that mindset, right? There are ways you can escape the matrix and you can own multiple houses, no problem. Especially, I named this is that current live stream as there will be opportunities. The problem is you cannot make too much dust, because then they will like that's the beauty of not having 5 million subscribers, because I'm not kicking up too much dust, right? But there will be ways how within the cycles you can know what's going to happen and kind of prepare yourself. But what you always have to think about as an honest man, how can I give value to my next door neighbor? And it's quite easy, because I said through the cycles, we go from raw materials, then we go to stuff that gets produced by raw materials, like houses, trains, and so on and so forth. Then tools, also very close to raw materials, right? And we go down the path, right? And eventually we get to food, and after food we get wages, and that's the last one. And then we go back to the other cycle, and this could be half a year to a year. And all you have to do is pre-position yourself for the next. So I hope you pre-positioned yourself for food and then wage. However, wage does not necessarily have to go up in nominal value. It could also be that all of the rest of the stuff before wage will be subsidized for poor people, and that's where eventually socialism kicks into high gear. But it will like go through the next, through the next, through the next. Now we're in the food cycle, my guess is, at least, and the next will be raw materials again. So we'll see how that long lasts, like when it will kick in. Right now, I think energy. but we're not yet there yet. Something big has to happen where it's so bad that either the wages jump, or you will all have government jobs, or government will subsidize some stuff. So, and this could be ugly. All right, long-winded answers. I don't know if this is what you're expecting, but hey, it's my channel. So Benoit and Spock are having a conversation. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I want to just say that whatever economic system we come up with is really just a reflection of our current state and the current state of the youth, and the how we want to manage our future. And by we, I'm not necessarily saying you. I don't know how much your vote counts, but like the people who actually make some decisions to some degree, how they see the youth of the next generation, and what's the best way to extract value from them. Because if you have a certain morality, then people like value can be extracted from you by the farm owners with capitalism. If you have different morality, then value can only be extracted from you through socialism. And if that doesn't work, then we go into feudalism or communism or whatever the dictatorship they come up with. The issue is that you can see what is the morality of the people, what is the country going towards, and you can expect like what will be the next system. And we cannot birth another system other than what we're ready for mentally. I think they're like, to put it in a different, completely different context. Like I'm saying, like, you can argue as much as you want. If you have different morality, like if you have a different moral compass, and you have like different view of what other people compasses are and what you expect, then you will come to different conclusions. What you expect from the future generation, right? And the same thing, but on the people who actually make decisions, because we're just arguing here. But they're making arguments there, and they will decide, okay, let's F it, we'll go communism or monarchy. It doesn't matter. I guess monarchy is now dictatorship without bloodlines, or maybe bloodlines if you're in North Korea. But what I want to say is that if you want to extract value, like if you're on the grand chessboard and you see Romania right there, okay, they are almost all rural. They don't have flowing water back in the day, I'm not saying now, or Russia, you name it. These guys are all just tending their chickens and tending their gardens. How can we extract value from these free people, right? Will they go along with our capitalistic model, and can we just tax them to death? No, because what do we tax them? Do we take chickens? What do we do with chickens, right? You want actual value, which is produced, pushed into one direction by the culture that you control. Like if you're a global dictator from that perspective. So what do? You have to force some system on there that pushes all of them into the cities. And what you do is come up with communism, you come up with a war, and so on and so forth, or fascism, and you force them, you physically force them to live in cities. Now, once you have that, you can force them into factories, right? Now, once you have that, you can capitalize on that. Oh, wait, the dictator doesn't want to work along with us anymore. Now we declare that is a bad dictator. Okay, come along. A different system, everything is there. People are not going to move out, all of them, out of the cities. And now you can extract wealth in a different way. Morality is now different. Nobody wants to work, so on and so forth. Now we go back with a different system. And to put it in a completely different context, there was, I guess, a politician in Texas who, I guess he was pro Second Amendment, but he was like making an argument against the Second Amendment to, I think, I mean, this is what I saw from it, to make us realize, I guess, I don't know if that's smart, but it seemed like it, to make us realize that if we don't have the right morality as a country, then we might as well get rid of both the Second and the First Amendment, because we're producing mental babies who are not capable of having either, right? So it doesn't matter. Like, if you can fight tooth and nail for your right to party, to freedom, if you don't raise the next generation that they love the values that you give them, it will be lost anyway, right? And they can wait. They can wait another 25 years. They can wait another 50 years. It doesn't matter. So you have to be good fathers. That's how you save a nation, not with economic theories or arguing about economic theories. It's good to have them, but the way you do it is you grow, like, you generate the next generation where they want a system that will work for them, that is rooted in morality and honesty. And usually that's not what we think it is. Ahmed, Ahmad's wife. Thank you. Yes, late to the party, but you're here. You can always rewatch it. Thank you very much. Um, how am I? I'm doing pretty well. I have a sore throat, but other than that, I'm doing pretty well. Thank you, Jim. I wouldn't say meditating, but I was talking, and in the sense of connecting with the eternal and trying to ponder on things and trying to receive a lot of answers. And I think it bared fruit. So it was fun. Ahmed, Ahmed's wife. Yes. Not with the fatherless wastrels raised by the government milk. Yes, but whose responsibility is that? Like, we gave up, probably me as well. Like, I use Gmail. Sometimes I'm using YouTube. You guys are watching it on YouTube, not on Odyssey or Rumble. So I, like, if I would post it there, I would have 2 views. Like, we gave it up for comfort. I made a video how comfort is the biggest tool for enslaving people in the modern world. So, like, the Bill Gates and the Schwabs and whatever, they are generated by us. And if they wouldn't be there, then someone else with a different name would still be there, because it is necessary for this society to have those goofy people saying to you that you need to eat bugs, because that's what we're worth as a society. Those are the leaders that we can generate. And yeah. So once we change that, then they will be different. Steve Hall. Yes, I think people are definitely trying to get it. I think in the sense they are now, like, after the pandemic or during the pandemic, I think a lot of people who did not think in a certain way have waken up to the point where they totally think now differently, which is good. The the scary part in that is that if they can no longer scare you with anything, and you want to be too much self reliable, so self reliant or self dependent or independent, is that they will take you to war. That's the problem. So so I don't know the way out. Well, maybe I do, but yeah. Yeah, the died suddenly meme. Yeah, I know. The European Commission officially allowed buck powder in normal consumption food since yesterday. I heard about something like that. I didn't like. Yeah, buck powder. Perfect. We will come to the point where you will have to make your own food. I mean, from absolutely everything. I mean, we're still buying a bunch of stuff, but at this point, like, my father said, like he you cannot trust flour. He was trying to make bread, and he said there's all kinds of junk in there, like, and I don't know, like, he thought, like, was this real or not, but, like, I think he was right, and this was way back. So he wanted flour for bread from specific sources, and he was very picky. Go look up Nehushtan, the Bible snake on the pole and the symbol of medicine. In the Bible or in the Sumerian texts? I'm asking, like, honestly. I guess you're saying the Bible. None of mine will go to war unless they bring it to us. Well, yeah. Grinding grain is work. Yes, we do that. Like, we do grind some grain, but it's like time consuming and electricity consuming, and the grinding wheels, I don't know. Like, we just grind some extra, so we want to have the wheat and the germ in there with the oils in the germ and so on, and you cannot store that. And usually the flour is made without the germ and without the oil and that sort of stuff. So we grind some, but we're still purchasing, right, flour, and packaging it and storing it, and so all of that stuff that we bought. I don't know if my father was right. He was right on a lot of things. I got chili from Chili Plant. Who wants to trade? We have chili as well, but that's awesome that you have some. So how would we trade? I'm not looking for chili, but, like, if we have a community of 61 people, only 35 likes. But let's say we have an international community of 61 people. How can we make trade? Like, how can you send me your knife so I can sharpen it and send it back to you? Of course, it's not worth it. Just learn how to sharpen knives, right? Um, we'll give you something, and you send me chili or seeds, and we pay for each other, right? Gold is not the perfect medium for it. in this age for everyday trade for minuscule amounts. And what if we do, like, eventually we'll end up something like with crypto, right? Um, but what? And my guess is like we could use either Zcash or Firo or Pirate Chain, right? The problem is that most of them are very volatile. Maybe not Pirate Chain is not that volatile, but if you don't want to be in the beast system, we'll have to figure something out. Molternative says, funny how I'd rather be a millennial than a zoomer. So yeah, claim it. And I know how much millennials are hated. I don't think they're hated. I'm not hated by me anyway. But I think we're kind of like pushed to each other's throat more than we think we are. And it's all just memes anyway. The thing is, like, if you're a millennial, you're still very old now. Like the words that you think they're still cool, it's really only cool in your circles now. And they have words now. The Zoomers, I guess, have words now that you don't even understand. So welcome to being a grandpa, I guess. um, yeah, it doesn't really matter. Like the pyramid, the good pyramid should be that there are fewer older peoples, more less older, and more younger, and the broadest at the bottom with the most babies, right? As long as we have that pyramid, then everyone can assume his and her role, their his and her role in society, right? The problem is when we have too many boomers and not enough babies. That's the problem. So we need to import babies, right? With the culture that gets imported as well. The problem is that like each generation has its own specific role, from wisdom down to work, and so on and so forth and so forth, to the kids. The problem is that I think that pyramid is totally messed up, some case inverted, I guess, in China. So I think that's where the intergeneration conflict is coming from, is that a lot of older folk need to be taken care of, but they didn't make 7 children, and now they're expecting that the system will take care of them. And nobody from the Zoomer generation wants that. So we're either importing a bunch of people, same in Eastern European countries now, unfortunately, or robotization, and you will be, we'll have robot nurses or something like in Japan. So don't buy in too much into this intergenerational hate that, oh, the millennials, or oh, the boomers. Like, I know a lot of good boomers and a lot of bad boomers and vice versa. So yeah, own whatever you are and just be happy with whatever you have. Apex late boomer alpha male. Apex predator. Okay, good, good. Hey, yeah, tell us something, man. Tell us something. What should we watch out for? What's best in life? Money or health, right? Money or health. Um, Now I'll read your comment, but I'll share my opinion. Oh yeah, I'm totally ashamed, but I can do a good person and try to get my own. Thank you, dude. That means a lot. Thank you. Benoit says, yeah, and the problem with big powder is that it contains high doses of cytine, yes, which is carcinogen. Which what Bog powder? Not big powder. Like we have big pharma, now we're gonna have big powder. That's funny. So we have like big pharma, big business, big powder. Okay, yeah. So the problem with consuming bug is a philosophical one in my sense. Like if you're on an island and you have nothing to eat, go eat the bugs, whatever. You survive for the next 2 weeks, maybe the ship comes by and you get rescued and you have a nice steak and you call yourself a stakeholder. Okay, so the problem is that you become what you eat. And I mean that in a spiritual sense. Like, we can joke, but I really mean that. Like you become what you eat, or what eats what you eat. Probably more specific. You become what eats what you eat. So if you eat too much grain, you get the bird brain. And there's like half joking here, of course. But like if you eat too much grain, there's a condition that people used to back in the old days, back when my grandma used to do interesting stuff. They would say that there's like I don't know what they called it. Like I have to translate everything into like three languages. Oh, was it Romanian? Okay, how does that translate? But there's a condition that they used to say for people who eat only grain, right? The same thing for everything else. Like there's a reason why the meat diet makes you a predator, right? The meat only diet. Like you get the different physique and so on and so forth. And once you eat bugs, I don't know what's going to happen, but believe me, or don't believe me, whatever, but just think about, meditate on this. If you eat bugs, what are you? Are you still a human in the core sense of the word, right? Um, and then you think about other things. So like it's in a religious, like you have to make it your religion, or somehow work it into your religion, your personal religion, what you eat, because it's what you consume. Like think about like the matter that was created by God. You push that through your system, right? That like an earthworm that goes through the soil. Like that is what your like cells will be, like on a cellular level, that those are the minerals that will go into. Like what happens to that cell intelligence, right? Okay. Trust the jab, not me. Grocery store bread tastes great. Uh, okay. I don't know. It does taste great. The problem is with grocery store bread is that I bought it when I was in LA and I had absolutely nothing to my name other than $20. Um, I bought some bread. I bought some bread, and this was probably mid-summer, maybe June, July. And I was living with interesting people. I was renting a room, and I had just enough money that I will pay the room soon, right? Um, until I get my wage and I was able to work it out. And anyway, so I bought some bread and I forgot about it. I forgot about it, and it was on like on a top shelf in the kitchen somewhere. Nobody ate it because it was mine. And come end of the year, it was the New Year's Eve, and I was still like poor, uh, monetarily speaking. I was very rich, physically and mentally, right? But monetarily speaking, and I bought it was some like, hot dogs, and I forgot to buy bread. And for some reason, like a spark of God, I don't know, that's the only thing I had. Like everyone else was partying somewhere with friends and, you know, um Puerto Ricans and whatever. It doesn't matter. So I was home alone, truly alone. I spoke with my parents through the phone, I guess. And I sat down alone in the apartment. It was very peaceful. I loved it. And I pulled out some godly spark reminded me about that bread. And it was there. And I opened, like, what, is it still there? And it was. And that's the only thing I had, and some Frankies. Okay. And I boiled the Frankies. I probably had some ketchup or something, and I wanted to eat hot dog. Uh, and the bread was still in the exact same state, which was so unusual for me because I was coming from a culture where bread goes bad after a couple of days, right? And like you have to fold it into cloth and do this, and you have to watch out for the moisture and that sort of stuff. And that bread was still there, still sliced. Nothing has touched it. We had cockroaches, yay size, but nothing wanted it. Not even the mold wanted it. And I ate one slice of that bread, and then I thought, who am I that I'm eating this piece of whatever? I don't know what it is, that not even the mold wants to eat it. No cockroaches, no rats, not even the mold. Yet here I am eating it. And I threw it all out. I ate the Frankies, which is probably not good anyway, but I had to eat something. And from there on end, I didn't want to buy bread anymore from the store. And then we had the conversation with my dad about bread, and I think he was right. He mentioned chicken feathers grounded. That's what they used to put in the bread. I don't know if that's a conspiracy theory or not. Do you think Slovaks should prepare to leave the country? I think I think it's up for the Slovaks. It's a beautiful country. I would not want to leave. I would not want to leave. All right. Okay, you guys have any questions? Let me know. I'll just go through this section. Looks like the chat is fun, but I will have to stop the stream soon. Thank you guys. Yeah, hit the like button if you want. Garden orchards, but meat off the hoof. My main source of calories. Yeah, what do you think about chat? What do you think about raw milk? Isn't it crazy that it is illegal in most states to, like, if anything else, if you're like a true freedom fighter, there are like these tasks, this list of tasks that we need to pick on, and we say, okay, this group, and you don't like no political stuff. You don't care. We don't care about that, right? Like we care about actual stuff that like we may have control over. And one is raw milk. Like how come you don't have the right to drink or privately sell raw milk, right? Even in California, for some reason, the hippies got this right, that you're able to do that, but not in not in some states that um, you would think they're normal people. The other thing is like making your own booze. Like I try to stay away as much as I can from alcohol. I really not a fan of it. Um, but like okay, I'll like sure I'll drink a beer or some wine um once in 2 months or whatever, or once in a month. But you should have the right to make whatever you want at home and consume it, and then deal with the consequences, right? You made it, you drink it, deal with the consequences. Like there are some very basic natural freedoms like that are so alien now for people, and for especially for young people. Not all, not all, hashtag not all. But like, how come you don't have these like very basic freedoms? Like this should be such an, or home birth. That's another one. Like some states, especially in Europe, there it's illegal to have home birth, right? There are some natural basic rights as a human being that you should have, and nobody should have any say at all if you're not hurting anyone, right? So it's a mind-boggling. But so yeah, what do you guys think about raw milk? Let's just stay with that topic. Billions for pharma companies, results be damned. Of course, I don't think it's even about the money. I don't think it was a compliance test, especially for the army. Not an accident that bug happened. Well, yeah, who knows what follows. Zero cryptos here. I use Glint, but even gold is not a stable coin. Well, nothing's a stable coin. The U.S. dollar is not a stable coin. Look at eggs. What? Eggs are the true stable coin. Eggs, believe me, because it will be an egg, right? It will be an egg tomorrow. It will be an egg, whatever, and you can eat it. And if not, you can you can cover it in ash and make 1,000-year-old egg and sell it that way. And lard probably. I know I'm kind of taking it. I'm tired and taking it jokingly, but yeah, nothing's a stable coin. But we do have to pay our taxes, I guess, unless you're in some states, at least the state tax anyway. In US dollars. So because of that one expenditure that we have, which is constant, right, in this current age, um, that is why we relate everything to that, because at the end of the day or end of the year, it is US dollars that we have to pay back to the king. That is why in our mind US dollars is stable coin, because we know what that percentage will be at the end of the year. We can calculate that if the tax code is out. So that is why we base everything on it. But technically, as I was saying earlier, if you could pay all your taxes in gold or Bitcoin, and you are like totally self-reliant, you don't even need to know if the US dollar exists. Right? And I was telling about like my sister this, because I'm teaching history to my kids, right? And medieval history right now. My sons love it. And like we have these maps, right? And okay, the Turkish or the Ottoman Empire expanded and blah blah blah. And okay, so they took this city, and this was like we draw imaginary lines around, like okay, this city encompasses that one in this region, and this is where the kind of the war ended. So this is how it stayed for the next 100 years, whatever. And when you think about it, like an army of 200,000 soldiers, like go take city by city, right? 10,000 people in a city, 50,000 people in a city, and they just advance and take one by one. And eventually, they don't feel like going anymore, or they can't, or they're stopped by the Polish or whatever. And like that's how it stays. And that's how it stayed for like 200 years. And I'm thinking, like, why? Like once that army passes, right? They leave some people. They maybe execute the city leaders, and they leave some Ottoman leaders. Okay, this is how we're gonna do business from now on in this Koposhfeyev or whatever, like city, Cluj. It doesn't matter. But the people were like, "Why do you take it? Like, It's just they're not leaving the whole 200,000 men in the city. They're just moving to take the next city. Like technically, you could just overthrow the Ottoman leaders that they left and just continue. Like, or just continue, or don't pay them taxes, right? Don't pay the Ottomans taxes, whatever. And I'm just saying Ottomans because this is the, like, any country. Take, okay, the Greeks and the Iranians, or the Iranians and the whatever. It doesn't matter. Or Alexander the Conqueror, right? Like, it's a good guy in our story, a bad guy in a different story. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that they get defeated. The city gets defeated when in their mind they said, okay, well, I guess we're conquered now, so we're gonna pay this guy. Or technically they didn't care, like, whatever, like, oh, let me just have my whatever life back. I don't know what they used to do, right? uh Work my field, and it really doesn't matter who I pay the money because I have a life that sucks anyway. So it's all in our minds, those lines that we draw, like, okay, this is the border between two countries or cultures, and this is how it stayed for the next 200 years. Why couldn't you just say, no, we're gonna go with that country? Or couldn't you just say, like, yes, there will be consequences? I know, like, this is hypotheticals here, but, like, nobody can really rule over you if you don't want to be ruled over by anyone. You know what I'm saying? It's just you have to bear the cost, right? And the problem is that the previous rulers, so I'm getting to the solution of this. The previous rulers made those, I guess, city dwellers so dependent on the city that when the top got changed to the now Ottoman ruler, they had no choice but follow and continue with the same lifestyle. And if that was true like that, like, how much truer it is now? Like, right now, if, and let's not get any other nations involved. Let's say the Martians invade, right? And they just put a different person, or Martian, whatever, in the city council, every city council. Like, how many people would just continue with their lives, drinking their beers and drinking their six pack and watching Netflix and going to the mall or shopping on Amazon, and they wouldn't care at all? You know, they would not care. It could be the Russians, it could be the Chinese, Japanese, Indians, whatever. How many people that would just continue life it is, and yeah, I don't care. Yeah, okay, now it's for writing Japanese, who cares? Now that's unfortunate, you know. And that is what subversion is, that you get to hate or not care about your own culture so much that whatever the invading army or just the takeover happens, you actually see them as, oh, well, finally, at least we can now have men's restroom and women's restroom, and that's better than we had, where you had to be afraid for your daughter. That's subversion. We're all subverted, all of us. um, yeah, clear your mind, people. All right, Eggcoin, Eggcoin, it is. Thank you for the live. Thanks, Jason. Star, yay, like. I like the use raw milk for yogurt. All right, that's good. Regulate tax, pretend you're causing a benefit, make more bureaucracy. Birth is tough. I would not choose a home birth. I almost died in a birth. The main thing is dependency, taxes, and owning people. I'm not saying it's for everyone. I'm glad you're here. I hope the baby and everyone is doing good in your family. Uh, I'm not saying it's for everyone, like the home birth thing, but I'm saying as a concept, it should be, I think, it should be legal everywhere because it's the most natural thing. it is nature, native, naval. It's like all birth or ship related, if you want to put it that way. Um, so like that's nature itself being born, and we regulate that somehow. Um, but I understand it's like I'm glad that we have facilities, and I'm glad we have everything else. I caught all my children myself. Of course, well, the birth theme was there as well. But I understand maybe it's not for everyone. Bacon coin. Bacon coin. Like, wouldn't it be nice if you would have one bacon coin and you could always exchange that? There would be a central bacon bank where you could always go and just exchange that bacon coin for bacon. Yep, pickle the eggs too. Um, we're reinventing money, so the damage stays stealthy. Humans only been drinking milk for less than 10,000 years ago. I don't know about that. Maybe. I would think it's more. I'm in USA. I'm saving my savings until after the crash to buy a house deal. Yes, well, so back to more serious stuff. I don't know what you should do. The problem is that when we saw, so like different, we said, but there were different scenarios, right? You can have a deflationary crash for the short term. I think that's what we're going through not right now. More to come. Eventually, Fed pivot and another inflationary cycle, which will outperform the previous one. In that case, if you hold cash, that's probably the best you can do. However, at some like you also see that it's not so much that cash is appreciating, it's the living standard is being crushed. That way, the stuff that you don't need that much are deflating, and the stuff you need more, like bacon and eggs, of course, are increasing in value. So if you hold cash so that you can buy bacon next year, that's a bad idea, because that we're in the cycle of we're in the previous to last cycle in the mini cycles of a hyperinflation, a potential hyperinflation. So that's food. And I think that if something like what we had in Romania repeats, that a house will be a house. So if you have bought it and you are able to keep it with paying taxes, maybe in gold or silver or whatever, you can keep it. You're not really losing anything, because you bought, like, you're carrying that property over from a pre-crash era into the new monetary era. And that's what we did in our family. We purchased property right in the crash, but the house prices went up in the crash. It's just nominally it went up. In real terms, it went down. So to understand that, if you hold $10,000 and the house is currently $100,000, that's 10%. Now the economy could be crashing at a fast rate, right? Well, the stock market is crashing. People out of their jobs, they can't afford food. A lot of people start losing their homes, and it might go down, it might go dip, but it might not go that much down. So there will be like a slight period of you utilizing that. Maybe, I'm not giving advice. There may be a slight period of utilizing that cash. But as soon as that hits the bottom, I think inflation will hit so much that if you don't take advantage of that short period, of that window of opportunity, then that $10,000 will inflate in the sense that it won't even buy 5% of the house anymore. And the house is still crashing, but not nominally, because it's actually the US dollar or the currency is being deflated. And you can see that because it's losing value compared to eggs. That's why we're going to go back to eggs or actual stuff that we need for every day. That if you measure the house price in eggs, it already crashed. Like it already deflated so much, right? The problem is that you are not an egg producer. You produce money through wage, right? So that's why you're screwed up. Or I hope you're doing well, of course. But that's like why the average people is, right? So the problem is that we're treating cash as this equal layer and everything going up in or down in price to it. But actually everything, absolutely everything is sinking because cash itself is sinking, right? And what's falling like faster, like stock prices have, they might turn now, I don't know, or house prices are turning downwards. Is just they're falling faster. So it's like you're on a sinking ship and you're looking at other sinking ships, and some ships are sinking faster. But at some point that turn might happen so fast that if you don't take advantage of that, you won't be able to use that cash for anything. Now I think cash is king. It's going to be king for a while, maybe the next 6 months, 8 months, I don't know. But that has happened in Romania. There was a window of opportunity to pay off the loan that you had in your house that you bought during communism with the cash amount of probably 1 month's pay or 2 months' pay. But the way you did it was like you converted that cash, whatever you had, into a foreign currency. You stored the foreign currency, then the cash value went to SHIT. The property was where it was, and then you use that foreign currency to pay the house off with 1 month's pay. So like in a different way how it would be in current times, I guess, if you buy some crypto stuff today and you wait with it, and then, or not crypto, let's just say gold, whatever, you buy something with the cash, and by the time the cash goes to crap, you get to pay the house off. But if you don't have the house yet, it might be like you will have like even shorter amount of window of opportunity paid off, because at that point it might jump. Like house prices could still double, triple, right? And this might sound like crazy, but I'm not saying it's going to double, triple next month. I'm saying like you have to watch out. And when you feel like house prices went down enough, then go and take that opportunity, because once it turns, it will turn so fast that it will make your head spin. That's my opinion. Okay. The reason is illegal is because they must keep track of their slaves. Okay, yeah. Home birth baby is yours. Most hospitals bully moms into agreeing with you. Yeah. Yeah. Let's not even get into that. Yeah. But Ahmed's wife is knows some stuff. Let's just say that. We in the end times, there will be no coming back from this crash. Well, no, it will be a different system. How much gold to buy a house? I lived in times, and I'm not that old, right? I lived in times where it was less than 1 ounce of gold for a property with land as well. So if I say 1 ounce per one house, one detached house, right? Um, you might think it's big, but it's not. That those opportunities come along every now and then, all the time. It's just the memory of people is so short, right, that they forget about it. But you have to be able to keep it. If you have nothing to eat before it goes there, you will spend all the gold and everything you have to have food. Believe me. So you take care of the basic necessities first, then you have intergenerational wealth stored somewhere away from you as much as possible, the physical you. So you're safe from it, um, and and you wait. Ideally, in a different country. I produce most of our food, sell berry bushes and permaculture plants. What kind of berries do you have? I wonder. We have a small construction company I've tried to hedge. How is construction doing? I wonder. Construction stopped almost, well, not everywhere. They're still like preparing the ground, but I don't see too much construction. David Gray, catching you live. Great stuff. Catching my live show. Thank you. Yeah, ask a question. I'll stay for another 6 minutes, maybe. 2 years worth of stuff. Yeah. Look, if you have 6 months worth of stuff, I think you're doing great. And the capability of reproducing that. So Jim has the ability to absorb inflation without selling assets. Place to live, number one, that can't be lost. Congratulations, Jim. That's how that should be the normal, you know. And when you once you're there, you probably see, right? Like how different the world would be if everyone had that level of security. Like, do you think that we would care about like mean tweets or something like that? You know what I'm saying? Like the level of stability would make sure that freedom prevails. Because if everyone, absolutely everyone else had that level of stability, then freedom and the aspiration for freedom would be natural. You would not be able to teach kids crazy stuff in school because like, there would be no one to teach the crazy stuff. Because you have to look at like with a compassionate eye for the teachers who teach the crap that they have been taught to teach. If they had that level of freedom, like an intact family, a father in place, a mother, right, and who's not always at work, right, and if they have been homeschooled and so on and so forth, do you think that college BS propaganda would have had any place to stick in their minds? Probably not. Let's end with that. All right. Truly with compassion to your fellow man. I think freedom starts with having, well, the freedom mentality, but then also some stability. Painting business is sluggish. David Gray, Learn to sharpen knives. That's one thing. That's something my father did for almost never for money though. He did it for favors. Like if you can have a lot of people who owes you a lot of favors during an economic crash, you will do really well once the crash is over. Learn to do physical stuff with your hand. Um, if nothing else, 3D print and um, be able to smelt and pour stuff out of metal. So 3D print wax and do the wax mold and be able to produce physical stuff. That's one thing. Gunsmithing is another one. Um, endless examples, but you want to make sure it's like something that it's not for a hobby. So like if you're a Dungeons and Dragons player, that's awesome, and you can print figurines. But like, if people are suffering, they're not gonna care too much if you can print figurines. You need to be able to print stuff and make stuff that you can actually use, and it's necessary for life, or it's necessary for stuff. Plumbing, if you can learn plumbing, like keep your whatever job, I'm saying, like on the side, have a plumbing skill. Roofing, fixing roofs, that sort of stuff, fixing cars. um, those will always be there, you know so those are some skills. Because if we cannot import anymore because the currency went to shit, or if, sorry, YouTube, currency went bad, um, then all the stuff that you can now get with a click that is being imported, um, is going to be tenfold, 50-fold in price. There was like a a guy who bought a bunch of bicycles during the Weimar Republic times, right? And he just stored his money in bicycles, and after the inflation was over, he just resold, opened up a bicycle shop and resold everything. But that has value prior and after. Now technology changes. Now maybe bicycle's not so good because you're gonna have an old bicycle, right? I'm not sure if a lot of people want old bicycles, but like you gotta watch out for Pokemon cards, because I'm saying this with an honest heart. Like, I know collectibles have values and that sort of stuff, but like, they might still have some value afterwards, but definitely not during, you know? So, like, diversify it out a little bit. It- Maybe after like a 20-year lost decade or lost 2 decades, will the next generation will still know what Pokemons are? I don't know. Or will they know about do I know about Beanie Babies? Same with crypto. Will people still care about that? I don't know. Um, Even gold. I don't know if the system will allow you to have gold 50 years from now. But 250 years from now, it will be valuable again. I lived through, well, haven't lived through, but my grandmother lived through times for 40 years or so where gold was illegal in Romania. So you kept it in the ground, right? But skills, yeah, skills. Yeah. The mainstream media are saying Japan is finished due to birth rate as an introvert, naturally declining population. Sounds great to me. I don't know about that. Do you see it as a good or bad thing? Well, the way I see it, if you have good people who can produce value out of nothing, or the resources around them, you cannot have enough of them. And if you have people who are parasitic and don't create value around them and just take, even one is too much. So I don't think it's that much of like a numbers game. Like if we have a lower birth rate, but our sons are so productive with robots and so on and so forth that they can just take care of everyone and everything, it doesn't matter. Like it's their system, it's their right to have more babies or less babies or more babies. It doesn't really matter. And And if not, then they're doomed. So I think it's more a question of morality. I think there's bigger problems in the West with morality than with Japan's birth rate. Like, people are like saying China will implode and that sort of stuff. And it might, but I don't think it's gonna be because of birth rates. Um, I don't think it's gonna be because of birth rates, because ideally you should not even care about birth rates. You should just make sure that you have enough children, right? And you take good care of them, and don't rely on society to take care of you. But and don't expect your children to take care of you. But like, if you raise them right, um then hopefully you won't have to ask. You know what I'm saying? um all right. Urban man cry. Also, I don't like boomers. Well, start liking them. Start liking everyone. Whatever. It's You can like or not like anyone, but it won't solve anything. All right. Talk to you guys later. It was fun. Make sure to like the video and tune in next time.